Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon and welcome to this month's WCMA member-only free webinar. Today we're focused on the business case for sustainability at your dairy business. We have a great lineup of speakers here to talk with you today, fellow members and great partners in the industry that are extremely knowledgeable about this topic. So we're very excited to get started. But before we do, I want to do a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Please make sure to mute yourselves during our presentations so we don't have any interruptions. We will have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions that come up along the way, please feel free to drop those in the chat and our staff will make sure to keep an eye out for those. You'll also be welcome to unmute during that Q&A session toward the end if you would like to ask a question verbally. We will share a recording of this webinar as well as a number of helpful resources shared by our presenters and contact information by the end of this week. So if there's anything you miss while we're going, if you forgot to take down a certain note or anything like that, don't worry, we will send out that recording and all those resources before the end of the week. So to get started, let's take a quick look at our agenda here. We'll start off with sort of a higher level overview of dairy processors' sustainability initiatives. That'll be presented by Eric Hassel of the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy. Then we'll move on to a couple of member perspectives from fellow WCMA members. We have Holly Jones joining us from Agripure and Bob Wills of Cedar Grove Cheese here to talk with us today about their experiences and sustainability efforts. And then we'll turn to WCMA's Danica and Nilsestuen to talk a little bit about the resources that your trade association offers. We've got some exciting things coming up in the sustainability world. So Danica's going to run us through that and how you can get engaged. Then we'll move to our Q&A session at the end, as I mentioned earlier, before we wrap up this month's webinar. So with that, we will go ahead and get started with Eric Hassel. So Eric is the Director of Sustainability Measurement and Reporting at the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, where he works to develop impactful sustainability measurement and reporting mechanisms in the U.S. dairy industry. Eric's work supports the development of the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment, which I know he's going to talk a little bit more about today. And he's here to also walk us through a broad overview of sustainability initiatives that are available to dairy processors and the resources, the ways Innovation Center can help you get started. So Eric, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Grace, and good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Can you all see the slide deck okay? Excellent. All right, so just to start, I'll give a quick overview on the presentation that I'll run through today. To start, I'll just go a quick background into the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy and what we do and how we operate in case folks aren't familiar. Then I'll just spend a few minutes talking about what materiality and really being the kind of cornerstone for sustainability and where dairy processors can really sink their teeth into sustainability. Then I'll highlight the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment, as Grace mentioned, and I'll spend the remainder of my time speaking about the Dairy Processor Working Group. So the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, again, if you aren't familiar, I know a lot of the folks on the phone probably are, but for those who aren't, we're really the national level convening body and facilitating body for dairy on sustainability and social responsibility topics and issues. It's a pre-competitive forum where we bring the U.S. dairy community together to align on priorities and focus areas, also to help advance an industry-wide sustainability and social responsibility platform, and really speak with a unified voice about all the good work that's going on, across the country, being done by dairy farmers and the larger dairy community as a whole. So at the beginning of last year, in January 2022, the Innovation Center refreshed its strategic plan. And this is essentially that plan on a slide. And the way we operate and we kind of conduct our business is really under this overarching vision at the top, which is where a future where US dairy unlocks transformative good for people and the planet. So that's really our North Star as we conduct our work. And that vision is supported by three core pillars, as you can see there. The first being advanced well-being. That is substantiated by enhancing nutrition security and benefiting the body. The middle pillar is regenerate the environment, which the supporting strategies there is to achieve greenhouse gas neutrality, improve ecosystem health, and to accelerate the circular economy. And the third core pillar is caring for our animals and our communities, supported by providing exceptional care for our cows, empowering our people and communities, and ensuring excellence in food safety and traceability. So this is really the foundation from which the Innovation Center works and operates. And at the very bottom in that green bar, that is really what it's built upon and how we measure and communicate progress on these three core pillars. That is the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment, which is the Innovation Center's social responsibility pledge to measure and report progress against all of these areas, as I kind of mentioned. So that's a very high level overview on the Innovation Center. And now I'll transition to materiality and kind of what materiality is, what it means for your business, and kind of how it guides the Innovation Center's work as well. So materiality, if you're not familiar with the concept, is essentially the process of identifying and prioritizing social responsibility and sustainability topic areas that are core to your business context. So back in 2019, the Innovation Center conducted a national level materiality assessment. And so essentially what that consisted of was a broad, extensive stakeholder outreach and engagement process to really get the landscape and the lay of the land in terms of what sustainability and social responsibility topics were top of mind and should be prioritized at the national level. You know, sustainability is very broad. There are many topics within sustainability, and you know, we realize that businesses and companies don't have the time, the resources, the finances to invest, you know, in everything under the sun. So the materiality assessment really helps you identify and prioritize where you should be focusing, where you should be spending your time, what are the most critical aspects of sustainability from where you sit. And so the purpose of conducting a materiality assessment is to provide key input to inform strategic planning. It also, as I kind of mentioned, helps identify material ESG topics, or environmental, social, and governance topics for U.S. dairy. It strengthens our credibility and provides a consistent voice for sustainability priorities and actions. And it also aids individual U.S. dairy companies in developing their own materiality assessments. And this is best practice in sustainability today. You know, it's increasingly becoming commonplace to conduct a materiality assessment, to be proactive and have a voice at the table and be taken seriously. So this U.S. dairy materiality assessment scope applies to all dairy production and processing within the United States. And if you divert your attention to the graphic on the right, this is really the kind of snapshot of what the U.S. dairy materiality assessment revealed. This is called a materiality matrix, or a materiality grid. And if you look at the y-axis there, the y-axis measures importance to stakeholders, whereas the x-axis is measuring the significance of U.S. dairy's impacts. And then you'll also notice next to each individual topic area is either a hollow circle or a filled in circle. That is a kind of a z-axis, if you will, that measures the influence of U.S. dairy on that particular topic area. So if it's filled in, it's high. If it's hollow, it's medium. And if there's a dot in it, it's low. So essentially, the simple way to read this chart is that the higher up and to the right a sustainability topic is listed, the more important and material it is to US Dairy and the Innovation Center's work. And as you can see, the majority of the sustainability topics that were assessed are in the upper right quadrant or the upper middle quadrant. So all that being said, US Dairy has conducted a national level assessment, but to take it a step further, we also have developed a materiality guide for US Dairy companies. This guide is really intended to help assist companies conduct their own materiality assessment based on that US national assessment that I just spoke to. This further helps companies consider and evaluate organizational factors such as business activities, relationships, other nuances like location-specific aspects that may not be captured at that national level assessment. So it really kind of digs a level deeper into your specific business context. And it also outlines key steps for dairy companies to use that national assessment to complete a credible and beneficial organizational level assessment. So this resource, as well as the US Dairy National Materiality Assessment, are freely available online on our website, and I'll speak to that a little bit more later. In addition to our national assessment and our company level assessment, another great resource that the Innovation Center has developed to help dairy processors get started on sustainability is this Sustainability Resource Guide. This helps processors seeking to align their company operations with sustainability metrics and goals generally used throughout the dairy industry. A lot of them, shown in that materiality grid on the previous slide. It also assembles numerous resources that have been developed by the US Dairy community as part of its pre-competitive industry-wide commitment to sustainability. And this is really applicable to your company, no matter where you are in your sustainability journey. If you're just getting started, there's a section that helps hold your hand and walk you through the process on what to do. Or if you're well-versed in sustainability and you're looking to take your operations to the next level, this kind of goes into a little bit more detail on that as well. So another great resource to give a read should you be interested. So now shift to spend a few minutes on the US Dairy Stewardship Commitment. The US Dairy Stewardship Commitment is, as I kind of spoke to on that Innovation Center strategic plan slide, our national level social responsibility pledge to consumers, customers, and other stakeholders. It's our way as an industry to demonstrate and document how US Dairy is responsibly producing milk and other dairy products, bringing value to the communities we serve, and act transparently and meet globally accepted standards. It's really the teeth behind our sustainability and social responsibility efforts. It's the way we measure, report, document progress annually on a consistent basis, so that our sustainability claims and progress is defensible, credible, transparent, verified. So I have a short video that I'd like to share, if possible, if it'll work, hopefully, Grace. Working?
It's working, but we're not hearing sound.
Not sharing sound, okay. Darn, okay, maybe it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Would you like me to try it on my end?
Sure, yeah, hopefully that works.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Let's give it a shot.
Okay, you're sharing. Excellent.
The stewardship commitment was really the culmination of a journey. When the Innovation Center was formed in 2008, it was to bring farmers and processors at the table to work on topics that are pre-competitive. So things like taking care of our animals, taking care of our earth, taking care of our people. Those are the kinds of things that no matter what an organization is trying to do on service and price and product development and its own primary research, at the end of the day, dairy's reputation with shoppers and consumers globally will hinge on how well are we treating the animals, our earth, our communities.
The U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment is the vehicle, it's the vessel that shows what we're doing to the consumer. It demonstrates that commitment, that pledge, that we're doing the right thing for the right reason, that this is about producing a high-quality product that meets all of their expectations.
Dairy farmers have always been great stewards of their land, and this ability to defend the good practices they're implementing on their dairy adds value to the product through the supply chain and helps us sell more dairy products to the customer.
It's not enough anymore just to say we're going green, we're going to be better, we're going to do better. We really have to put metrics and data points and goals to those words. And what the stewardship commitment's been able to allow us to do is really track those metrics and be supported on a global platform and really help us to be more competitive.
Receiving questionnaires from global dairy companies that can be 50 or 100 plus pages long could be very intimidating. Adopting the stewardship commitment has helped us see through the fog, so to speak, and really align to core values within the industry.
United Dairymen of Arizona has used the stewardship commitment to enable us to set targets, goals, and be able to communicate that out in a robust way to our U.S. and global customers.
I can't overstate how important the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment is to the people that buy our products. In essence, by adopting the stewardship commitment, in minimum, we're saying we care.
As dairy farmers, we're committed to continuous improvement. The U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment is essential to the dairy industry because we need to be able to deliver products that people feel good about.
The truth is, and we know this, if we're not telling our story, if we're not measuring our progress and reporting with precision our achievements, somebody else is trying to tell our story. And I don't like that. We shouldn't like that. When you commit to the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment, what you're really saying is you want to do better in caring for animals and caring for people, caring for earth, caring for community. You want to do better, and you're willing to back it up with measurement. And at the core, we're champions for doing better.
Awesome, thank you. Apologies for the technical difficulty. I will share my screen one more time. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a brief glimpse into what the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment is all about. This is our current adoption rate to date. We have 36 companies across the country that have adopted the Stewardship Commitment. That is representative of just over 75% of U.S. milk production. So, you know, a large proportion of the U.S. milk production on board, consistently measuring, reporting progress to back up the great sustainability work that's going on. So this takes me back to materiality and the concept I was talking about before. The stewardship commitment metrics, which are captured in this image on the right side of the screen, way too small to read them individually and way too many. But they're all backed up and informed by that U.S. Dairy Materiality Assessment that we did several years ago. So all of the metrics that processors are measuring and reporting on are informed by this assessment. And the way that we measure and report on those metrics is through what we call the Processor Stewardship Reporting Tool. This tool is built on a cloud-based software program called Intellex, built directly from the metrics that are defined in the stewardship commitment that you saw briefly a second ago, and also the Dairy Processor Handbook, which is another resource that we have developed for dairy processors that is basically a step-by-step guide or a user manual on how to measure and report against each and every one of the processor level metrics in the stewardship commitment. It shows you where to go in your company to get certain data, how to measure certain aspects of sustainability in the dairy processing plant, supplementary resources that may help you along the way, etc. And this tool enables each company to report on these metrics for each of their processing facilities in a consistent, secure, and confidential way, so that the data is protected at the company level. And then each facility in the company portfolio is aggregated into a company footprint. And then all of the companies in the stewardship commitment are aggregated again into a national level report that allows the Innovation Center to report on progress on behalf of the industry at a national level each year. And this tool is also funded and overseen entirely by dairy processors. So no dairy farmer money is spent to facilitate this tool. And in our 2020 U.S. Dairy Sustainability Report that was published 2 years ago, this was the first time we took national aggregated data from that processor reporting tool and published actual numbers, actual data points in the report. We will also be publishing the second iteration of these numbers to hopefully demonstrate progress later this year in the next version of our report. But this is really was a really big milestone for the Innovation Center and the industry as a whole to document tangible progress and to back up the great work going on. In addition to some of the resources I've been speaking to, we also have other resources that the Innovation Center has developed for dairy processors that are completely free and available to you. I spoke to the Dairy Processor Handbook. The second one there is the U.S. Dairy Stewardship Commitment Overview document, which really goes deep into what the stewardship commitment is and what it's all about and what it means to adopt the stewardship commitment. Then the third and fourth resource there are Scope 1, 2, and 3 greenhouse gas inventory guidance documents. Greenhouse gas accounting and reporting is not a simple subject. So we've really gone the extra mile to try to help develop resources to help processors measure and report their greenhouse gas footprint in a credible way that is aligned and recognized with the greenhouse gas protocol. And then lastly, we have on the right there, a guidance document for dairy product enhanced traceability for processors. So really diving deep into technical steps that processors can take to ensure a robust traceability along the supply chain. So I'll just conclude here by spending a few minutes on the Dairy Processor Working Group. I think I see some participants of the Processor Working Group on the phone already, so thank you for supporting this effort. If you don't know what the Processor Working Group is, it's really the processor level strategy that we have at the Innovation Center to make progress towards our industry level 2050 goals. So back in 2020, the Innovation Center set 3 environmental stewardship goals to achieve by 2050, listed here: to achieve greenhouse gas neutrality, optimize water use while maximizing recycling, and to improve water quality by optimizing utilization of manure and nutrients. And so to drive progress and move the needle at the processor level, that's where the Processor Working Group comes in. It's technically a subgroup of the Dairy Sustainability Alliance. It's not a new group. It's been convening now for over 9 years, and we've really grown and gained a lot of momentum. We now are up to 60 plus participants from over 30 plus dairy processing organizations. And the way that we focus our work is in 3 distinct work streams: one focused on circularity, one focused on greenhouse gas, and one focused on water. And as you'll kind of see, those 3 areas are very strongly aligned with the Innovation Center's, not only the goals, but the strategic plan. This is just a very brief snapshot of some of the company representation that we have across the 3 work streams. You'll see many of the companies elect to participate in all 3, some of them just 1, some of them 2. And the level of engagement is really up to you. If this is something that you think would be of interest to you and you're interested in joining, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to give you a more in-depth introduction and orient you. There's no cost to participate, and it's completely pre-competitive. We meet once a quarter, and then we try to meet in person twice per year, piggybacking on the Dairy Sustainability Alliance meeting, the fall and spring meetings. This is just a very brief snapshot of some of the highlights, the key accomplishments from the last year and a half, 2 years from each of the subgroups in the processor working group. I won't read these verbatim because I realize I'm chewing up a lot of time, and I want to make sure I respect the other presenters' time. But I'd be happy to speak to more of these in a one-on-one phone call or webinar in the future if you're interested. Just really quickly, a few more processor resources to highlight for you. These are all of a result of the dairy processor working group. So our circularity team developed a dairy processor waste audit guidance that helps processors identify and prioritize waste streams in their operations, and strategies to begin mitigating or reducing those waste streams and ultimately working towards zero waste by upcycling, reducing, diverting from landfill, etc. In the middle is our dairy processor greenhouse gas reduction opportunities guidance, developed by the greenhouse gas subgroup. This one is a very in-depth technical resource I'm particularly proud of. It goes really deep in the weeds on how processors can take strategies and implement technologies and other resources in the actual processing plant to improve energy efficiency and reduce their greenhouse gas footprint in the facility. And then lastly, on the right, we have our dairy processing water definitions and reuse opportunities document produced by the water subgroup. This one, again, focused on in the plant scope on how you can identify opportunities to either reduce your water use and consumption or reuse it, and how to optimize water stewardship in the processing facility. So these, along with the other resources I spoke to, are freely available at that link at the bottom. I do hope that you'll give these a look if you haven't seen them before, and I sincerely hope that they're of value to you and your colleagues in your organization. With that, I'll wrap it up and pass it back to you, Grace. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Eric. That was chock full of great information. And just a reminder for everyone on the webinar today, we will share all the resources and Eric's contact information as well later this week. So keep an eye out for that in your email inbox. Next, we will turn it over to a WCMA member organization that is pursuing sustainability in a big way. We've got Holly Jones here. She's the Director of Global Sustainability for Agripur, which is one of North America's largest dairy processing companies and among the top 20 in the world. And she's here to talk with us today about Agripur's approach to sustainability and why they've invested their valuable resources in this area. So I will take up no more of her time. Holly, it's all you.
All right, thank you very much, Grace. Is everybody able to see the presentation? Yes, okay, fantastic. Let's get started. So first, I'd just like to say thank you to Grace and Danica for the invitation to speak to this group. It's always exciting to talk about sustainability and share what we're working on here at Agripur. As Grace alluded to, I wanted to start out with just a really quick overview of what we do at Agripur. Agripur, I think, is in the US. Some people know who Agripur is, depending on our relationship with different customers, but we're kind of a really low profile kind of company. So we are actually a Canadian company. We are owned by, the headquarters is in Canada, and they were established in 1938. Up in Canada, we operate as a cooperative. We have over 3,000 dairy farmer members in the cooperative in Canada, mostly in Eastern Canada, so Quebec. So all my coworkers up there speak French, fun fact. Between Canada and the US, we're doing about between $7 and $8 billion of sales around the world. We process over 6 billion liters of milk, and we also have over 7,000 employees. Here's an idea of what we, the types of products we have. So in the US, we really focus on a lot of cheese and ingredients, but in Canada, we also have different products. So we have ingredients, cheeses, frozen ice creams. A lot of our ingredients, like for the whey, goes into sports nutrition, it goes into infant formula. We also have bakery ingredients, beverages, fine cheeses, ice cream. What am I missing over there? Got about everything there. So we work with lots of different big brands that you see in the grocery stores. We are essentially the manufacturing engine behind a lot of those brands that you see in the grocery store. So in the US, you're not going to see Agropur at the grocery store, but up in Canada, you do. Down here, we make cheese and other things. For instance, if you eat a mozzarella stick when you go out to eat, we probably made it, like across the whole country. We probably made the mozzarella stick. If you eat pizza for many of the big pizza places and small pizza places across the US, mozzarella from Agropur is most likely on that pizza. Let me jump ahead. I was going to start out with, Grace, do we have time for the video or, yeah? Okay. What I wanted to do before I dive into the sustainability stuff, I like showing this quick video to kind of get everybody on the same page about what is sustainability. So I'll stop sharing. And Grace will share the video from her screen.
Let me make sure we've got audio on that here first. There we go.
The concept of sustainability first appeared in the Brundtland Report, published in 1987. This document, which was also referred to as Our Common Future, was elaborated for the United Nations in order to warn about the negative environmental consequences of economic development and globalization. It was written with the aim of offering solutions to the problems arising from industrialization and population growth. Today, sustainability tries to secure present needs without compromising future generations. How? Without giving up any of the three essential pillars: environmental protection, social development, and economic growth. Sustainability is concerned with assuming that nature and the environment are not an inexhaustible resource, and so it is necessary to protect them and use them rationally. Sustainability promotes social development, seeking cohesion between communities and cultures to achieve satisfactory levels in quality of life, health, and education. Thirdly, sustainability focuses on equal economic growth that generates wealth for all without harming the environment. Nowadays, many of the challenges that humans face, such as climate change or water scarcity, can only be tackled from a global perspective and by promoting sustainable development. Now that you know what sustainability is, remember to act in the present, thinking about the future.
Great, thank you, Danica, or sorry, Grace. Let me just flip screens here. Here we go. All right, back to the PowerPoint. All right, so I think that's a quick video, right? But it gives you a very quick little summary of what is sustainability. I always like to start with this because I feel like most people didn't grow up studying this, working in this field, and so now it's such a strong presence in our lives in the dairy industry and around the office. And I mean, I've been with Agropur for 3 years now, and most of what I did when I started at Agropur was a lot of just kind of educational, just talks like this, where we said, what is this? Why are we working on this? Where does this come from? Why are we reporting in this way? Why are our customers asking these things of us? And so there's lots of international and global metrics and frameworks and protocols that's all been building up for literally the past 20 or 30 years to get us to the point where we're at today. Also in the past, probably 10 to 15 years, this is when you saw the introduction of sustainability into the school system. So at this point, there are many, many, many different sustainability in business programs at many of the universities that you probably attended or have heard of. And so students now and people within companies are getting degrees at all different types of universities to specialize in sustainability related topics for business. I myself, Danica asked me to mention this specifically. I got my undergrad, I went to UWL, so La Crosse, and then I actually did my master's in corporate sustainability with Harvard University. All right, so this is a little bit high level in terms of where does dairy sustainability come from. This goes back to what Eric was mentioning a lot about these global goals and alignment and these criteria that we talk about, and all of the different topic areas that are considered in there. And what I wanted to highlight is that these frameworks already exist in dairy. So no matter what size company you are or what kind of business you do, all of these things have already been figured out for you, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel when you're thinking about how to approach sustainability in your own company. And I think that Eric did a great job of showcasing all of the different resources that the Innovation Center has developed. The resources, I mean, really when I started in Agripur, I didn't come from dairy. I worked with a lot of different industries. And I came into dairy and I said, all right, I need to figure out where all these frameworks are. How are we measuring this? How are we reporting? Who are we reporting to? And it was really through working with the Innovation Center, specifically with Eric and many great people on his team, and the working groups that he mentioned, the circularity one, the greenhouse gas one, and then, oh, Eric, what am I missing? Water, circularity, greenhouse gas.
Yep.
Water. Okay. Those working groups were, if you are not part of those working groups already, if you're not tapped into all of that Innovation Center, all of those resources and all of those opportunities to really connect with your peers, you are missing out on the biggest sustainability opportunity in the entire industry. It's right there. It's with Eric. Call Eric, get in touch with him, be a part of this, because this is where not only you, but other people on your team are going to be able to pull together information and experiences that within your own company, you're never going to figure this out on your own, right? You have everyone has a few things going on, right? But once you get in and you start sharing in that pre-competitive environment, which is such a unique environment for companies like ours, right? Because there's all these regulations on what we can and cannot talk about. In sustainability, we can talk about everything. And so for me and my team, it's really been one of the most valuable ways that we're able to increase our own team's knowledge and then bring it back to the company and make changes internally. So I highly recommend Innovation Center and all of their resources and excellent work. So I'm going to jump ahead to this then. So in Agripur, what does sustainability look like? And this ties back to what Eric mentioned earlier in his presentation about that materiality assessment, which is essentially that sustainability survey that companies do. And we also look to the Innovation Center in terms of what they've identified as national priorities in order for us to really look at what are our global priorities. And so in Agripur, it breaks down into sustainable farms, responsible sourcing, responsible operations, responsible products, and social impact. And we came to this grouping of items based on the same process that Eric mentioned. And then behind that, are all of the different commitments and pledges that we've made throughout the years to make sure that we're really putting that credibility and that what we're doing is validated. So behind the scenes, this is kind of the fine print. We are members of all of these different organizations and all of these different initiatives, and we have different responsibilities and reporting requirements and activities that we need to be doing to make sure that Agripur is meeting all of the industry sustainability expectations. And so as I mentioned before, Agripur is a major B2B supplier to many of the brands that you know already. So we take a very active role in supporting their sustainability journeys as well. So I'll get into that a little more on the next slide. Danica asked me really specifically, like, what's the business case? Why are you doing this? Why is it important? Sorry. And I would say for Agripur, it really started hitting home probably in 2020, I would say, probably 3 years ago or so, when you saw a lot of these brands. So let me scroll down. So it's like these brands, some of these brands. There's so many brands. I have a slide where it's like 5 slides of all of the different logos of the companies, but all of these companies who we work with in one way or another, we sell them something, right? They said, all right, we need all the dairy processors to start reporting on this very specific set of information. So how much energy do you use? How much water do you use? What does your packaging look like? How are your animals treated? And Eric showed that list of metrics. So it's those metrics plus a lot of other metrics from different frameworks. And we're constantly reporting out to these companies and explaining to them how we do our work and where there are opportunities to get better. So this for us, the business case for Agripur was, we want to have positive collaborative relationships with all of our clients. And if all of our clients are demanding that Agripur get really active in sustainability, then we're going to get active in sustainability, which is exactly why I was hired. So I was hired they said, Holly, we don't know what all the sustainability stuff is. It seems like a big deal to the customers. Can you please just, like, here's a laptop, please just go figure it out and let us know what we need to do. So that was my onboarding, and here we are 3 years later, and we've got everything together now. Everything's our T's are dotted, our I's. What is it? Our I's. Everything's in order. Our ducks are in a row now. That's what I went to say. And so here's an example of types of customers and what types of collaboration they want to do with us. But I wanted to show you something really like what it looks like when it comes across my desk. So this is like copy and paste from the RFP, request for proposal from Starbucks. And then here's one from Mondelez. And so this is the text from like the RFP, which is them asking us to, like bid to try and sell them all this product. And so they include sustainability questions and reporting guidelines inside all of these documents. So maybe 5 years ago, sustainability was a nice thing to have, right? You could talk about it. Hey, we're volunteering in the community. We're planting trees. Like, it was a very feel-good thing. And it was all about, like, it was called CSR back then, right? It was called, I can't even remember what CSR stands for at this point. Consumer social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility, I believe.
Corporate social responsibility, right? That was like, that's how we all grew up with that vocabulary. And then over the past 5 to 10 years, it's totally done a shift. And now it's called sustainability, or ESG, as Eric mentioned. And it went from being this very qualitative, feel-good space to work in. And now it's an extremely quantitative, everything has a metric, everything is reported, everything. It's very well structured now. And it's a completely different thing from what it was 10 years ago. And so now, instead of being a feel-good thing, it's actually, I'm pointing at my computer screen, but it's in these sales documents, right? So they want all this information about, what are your greenhouse gas targets? What are your targets? When are you going to achieve them? How do you manage your product and packaging waste at all of your manufacturing sites? Do you know how many we have? We have 31. And so they want to know, at 31 sites, what are you doing with all of your waste? What are you doing with all of your transportation and freight? Are you partnered? Well, this is a Canadian one specifically, but how are you working with the dairy farmers? Do you support them in terms of manure management, enteric methane, renewable energy, their feed? How do you manage the entire carbon footprint from, the milk, and then it becomes a product, and then it's packaged and it goes to the end consumer? Can you fully trace your greenhouse gas along that? And then on the other side, you have other customers that are asking about, do you analyze climate change for your business and where you source? Do you analyze water risk? Are you making sure that everybody that works for you and for the dairy farmers that sell the milk to you, are they all being well treated? Stuff like palm oil is a big one. If you use palm oil in any of your recipes, are you making sure that palm oil is only from certified providers? And so it's like this, but imagine this times 100 different customers. And so I think someone, maybe Rob mentioned it in his intro, when you're getting these types of surveys, it's not just Starbucks, it's 100 other customers that are all asking this information. And I'll go back to Eric again. If you're able as a company to organize your information using the best practices and metrics that the dairy industry has already put together, this type of stuff becomes much more fluid, right? Each one isn't a project. You have your database of information where you can figure out the answers to all of this. So I just have 2 more slides. Here's another one that comes directly to my desk. This is Nestle's net zero roadmap. So Agropur is a Nestle, we are a supplier to Nestle, as are many processors. And they released this roadmap and they said, Nestle's goal is to hit net zero emissions by 2050, which means that not only does Nestle's corporate offices, not only do those offices need to reduce emissions, but they want all of the suppliers in their supply chain to also reduce emissions. So we work very closely with Nestle to develop projects at the farm level, at the farms that make the milk that go into Nestle products. And so when they first contacted us, probably in this is 2021, and they say, hey, you know, that product that you sell us, we want to know exactly which farms it's from, which state it's from, like first name, last name of the dairy farmer. And we want to know if you're able to go out on that farm and work in these different areas. I'll show this. This is one of the US Dairy Net Zero graphics, also part of Eric's whole world of the Innovation Center and all the work they do. But Nestle said, are you able to go out on the farm and figure out a way to work with them to improve feed production and practice changes, work with them on manure handling and nutrient management, take a look at feed additives, you know, maybe there's something there. What about how they're using energy on the farm? And so, and so that's a big ask, right? I mean, Agropur had never done that before. You want us to go out and work with the farms and have them figure out how to help them improve farming and work toward regenerative agriculture. And then Nestle and many other customers said, yes, that's exactly what we want you to do. So what do? We say, okay, let's get started. Let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we can get out on the farm and who we can work with and who's doing great work in the farming space, because we aren't farming experts, right? Like nobody in this office is a farming expert. The farmers are the experts. And so understanding which organizations in our communities are working most closely with dairy farmers. At Agropur, we work closely with Farmers for Sustainable Food, which is one based in Wisconsin that also has national reach in terms of helping support farmers working toward regenerative agriculture practices. So it's also, sustainability is also really about being able to connect with people who are experts in their field and understanding how you can best collaborate together. So with that, I will close my presentation. I could talk all day about this stuff, but I was very specific. I wanted to keep it short. So I will leave my Q&A until the end, and I will pass the mic back to Grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Holly. That was great information. And I saw a couple of picture taking happening there, which is always such a good sign when we've got some good info on those slides. Next up, I am going to turn things over to one of my favorite people to introduce at things like this, because he is owner and president of Cedar Grove Cheese. He also runs Clock Shadow Creamery. He has a PhD in economics. He's a former attorney. He's a former congressional staffer, all around Renaissance man. Bob Wills is here to talk with us about his experiences, particularly as a smaller company, right? We've heard from Agropur on the larger company side. And now we're here to hear about Bob's why and Cedar Grove's why when it comes to sustainability. So Bob, I'll turn things over to you.
Yeah, thank you. For those of you who are visual learners, you're going to be disappointed for the next 10 minutes because I don't have slides. So I'm going to tell stories. My interest in ecology, in the environment, started when I was, in junior high school or something, and the first Earth Day came along, and I went with one of my teachers and helped do river cleanups, and eventually I went and worked for Gaylord Nelson in his office in Washington, D.C. And as a business owner, the values that you have after a short time in owning a business, the company starts taking on your values. And so you'll see as I talk about things that, they're value laden, but one of the things we really haven't talked about very much today is just what a scary environment we're in. And we're in a scary environment, both in the climate sense. Back in the day, if we had the water clean and we had the air clean, we thought we were doing pretty well. And what we didn't realize is that we were at that time is that we were putting out wastes that were destroying the environment in a pretty invisible way. On the other hand, you know, so today there's a lot of an assault on the dairy industry, and the dairy industry is attributed with being the bad guys, largely by people who are competing with us, but they have a lot of resources behind them, and they're getting they're getting a lot of attention because of their innovations. So first of all, I think it's really important that we put in perspective that cows and the dairy industry are not massive producers of greenhouse gases. We are probably have an impact of about 3% of greenhouse gas, but we still have a responsibility to do what we can and to reduce that 3% as far as we can. So the biggest point I want to make is that cheese is nutrient dense and relatively affordable, and so it's a way that people can get a lot of nutrients for without spending a ton of money on it. And I just spilled coffee on myself, so that helps too. So I think when we're looking at measurements, there's sometimes a tendency to just focus on the greenhouse gas emissions or CO2 equivalents. And it's really important as an industry that we start getting people to focus on CO2 per unit of human nutrition. And that's a measurement where the dairy industry excels, and where we should get credit for what we're doing. The other point that has been made a couple times during the meeting, and that is what the Innovation Center emphasizes about climate action being pre-competitive. So, you know, we can get two things basically out of our climate activities. One of them is more efficiency, and that helps us run our operations better and be less wasteful. And the other is a marketing advantage, and it's a marketing advantage in relationship to those people who are trying to undermine dairy industry. It's also a marketing advantage that potentially can be used in competition with each other. And so I think it's really important that the dairy industry think about how to think of climate action in terms of being pre-competitive. It's important for us to be able to share and to work together and to collaborate. In some ways, Cedar Grove cheese being on this panel is kind of like, why? You know, I think there are a lot of companies that deserve credit, and including a lot of the smaller companies like Beecher's Cheese and Ferndale and Crave Brothers and Road Creamery, and there, you know, and I love the fact that the Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association is doing this and looking for opportunities for us to work together moving forward. We also need to acknowledge the American Cheese Society, and a year ago had a conference session and what they called their Code Red series, and that was focused on dairy and greenhouse gas emissions, and that's available online, and I'd recommend it to people as a good place to start, and especially for smaller companies to understand what's out there. So let me just talk a little bit about some of the things that Cedar Grove Cheese and my other company, Clock Shadow Creamery, have done. Cedar Grove, we started out by replacing boilers, replacing lighting, and basically looking for efficient ways to run things. We built our living machine, which is a kind of innovative low input water treatment system, which allows us to release water to the creek here. It has its challenges, especially as the DNR becomes more restrictive in things that are not focused on impacts so much as concentration levels. And then Clock Shadow Creamery, 10 years ago, I built Clock Shadow Creamery in the city of Milwaukee, and it was one of the few urban cheese factories in the country. And part of the motivation was to be closer to consumers, so that there was less transportation between the factory and the people who were eating the cheese. Part of it was to strengthen the neighborhood, and that the building we built was one of the greenest buildings in the city. We took a brownfield site, we cleaned up the pollution in the soil. We put in 27 geothermal wells that provide heating and cooling to the building, and we use green electric. We also have rainwater collection on the roof, so that the water doesn't end up in the city sewer system, and which has been in the news a lot lately related to dairy stuff, unfortunately. And we even have in there a elevator that generates electricity as it comes down, so it's like a hybrid car, and takes people up to that green roof. So those activities were a good start, and they helped us to run more efficiently. We ran into some issues with waste disposal in Milwaukee, where we had been taking all of our whey to a digester that converted the whey into energy at the casino, and ran lights and ran heat for the building. And unfortunately, during COVID, that shut down, and the result was a huge increase in our waste disposal costs, and the whey not being used as effectively. So we went from being carbon negative to where we were actually generating more energy than we were using, to having a lot of expenses in getting rid of the waste. So that's affecting how we operate there now. On the most recent efforts we've been making are on the well, in some ways on the marketing side, in that we're trying to get credit for what our farmers are doing. And so we went out to all of our farms and we started interviewing them, and because I knew that there were a lot of activities going on at all the farms, but they're all on their own. We're not directing what they should be doing. So we went out and just interviewed them, and then we also went out with experts who could help them to become more efficient, who could help them with intensive grazing programs. Over half of our producers at Cedar Grove are organic producers, which we appreciate because of the focus on soil quality. The grazing systems are really good for helping offset carbon loss from the soil, and also for protecting the water resources in there. And so we're also helping them with ways to reduce enteric methane emissions, with various supplements, looking at what the value of the best length of lactation for their animals is, helping to figure out their impacts on birds and pollinators and that. And since a lot of them are Amish, we also focused on power use since they don't use any, and the carbon impact of an Amish farm is about 1/10 of a traditional farmer. But all those efforts we now are using to help to gain the farmers more income. So we have figured out how to tie those stories from each of those farms back to our labeling, use a QR code, and the consumer can pull that up and they can learn how about the activities that are going on at the farm level to help with the environment. So they not only learn about what the dairy industry is doing for environmental projects, but they presumably, once we get the thing done, they'll actually be able to financially reward the farmers if they like what they're doing. So anyway, that covered a lot of ground, and so I'll open it up for other people in conversation at this point. You're muted.
Hey, Grace, your audio is a little choppy. Bob, can you hear me okay? Oh. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay, awesome. So Grace is having a little bit of audio issue, but that's okay because it's my turn to talk next. My name is Danica Nilsestuen. I'm going to make this really quick. I'm our Director of Grants and Business Programs, so I am going to be helping to facilitate our export work group and our up and coming brand new super fun VIP sustainability work group. So basically what's going to happen is this is our sort of mini announcement that we're going to be kicking off this work group early 2024. So what I'm going to be doing this summer is harassing every single stinking sustainability expert that I know. So Holly and I will continue to meet, and Eric and Bob and all my other friends doing this work. And then we will be putting out a survey early fall. And that survey will be to all of our WCMA members to kind of gauge interest as well as topics and areas of focus. In November, we're going to have an online roundtable, which will be a facilitated conversation, which will help us gather even more information about how we should really focus the agendas for our first year of the work group. And then in February, we'll gather in person, probably hybrid, for our very first work group. And so we just wanted to make that quick announcement here. If you are a member interested in sustainability and have specific issues you want to talk about, if you are a member who is already doing this work and wants to chat, please give me a call. I'd love to set up some time to talk to you if you have any thoughts, feedback, or input on things that we could cover moving forward. Okay, and Grace, I don't know, do we have your audio yet? Not really, so I'm going to just wing it. If you want to go to the next slide. We have run out of time for Q&A. This has been recorded, and so Gracie will send this out with the materials provided by our speakers with a recording. I believe some of them are willing, our speakers are willing to stick behind to answer any questions that might have come up. I'm so sorry we can't do that, and we went a little long. We're also going to make a quick announcement and reminder here about our next webinar. This is Cutting Edge Innovations in Dairy Automation, which will be Tuesday, August 1st. That's the day before my birthday, so we should all show up. I have no idea who's facilitating this one. Gracie will have a brand new baby, so she won't be here. So let's see, is that it? I'm just winging it, you guys. I don't know, I'm probably doing a terrible job. Grace is giving me the thumbs up. Okay, so that's our next fun webinar, so look out for registration information for that. And that's it. Thank you so much, Eric and Bob and Holly. I look forward to talking to you again all summer. We're going to have such a fun time together. And thank you so much for everybody for hopping onto the webinar. So sorry it went a couple minutes long, but as you can see, sustainability is a big, big topic. And good luck to us all in figuring it out. So I personally have to hop off because I have another meeting, but if anybody else wants to stick around and ask questions of our fabulous speakers, go forth.